Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. November 13th, 2017.
Ladies and gentlemen, is it offensive to say ladies and gentlemen? I'm not kidding. This is now, watch out for this. This phrase, which has been with us for hundreds and hundreds of years, for centuries, is now going to be slowly eradicated from the English language, or at least in public use here in the United States, because of political correctness. And so I want you to listen to this story. In New York, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, they make all these announcements on New York City subways and buses, is doing away with the phrase ladies and gentlemen in all of its announcements. You know, whatever. The subway will be late. Ladies and gentlemen, the blue line will be late today, 5 minutes or whatever. They say that the phrase ladies and gentlemen is politically incorrect, that in fact it's discriminatory, I swear to you, and offensive. And why is it discriminatory and offensive? Because it goes after people, or it excludes people who say are transgender. Say people who don't identify as a lady or as a gentleman. They don't identify as a man or as a woman. And so because of that, this is offensive, they say, to the LGBTQ community, to people who are transgendered, people who have gender identity issues. And so because of this, this phrase will no longer be heard in all public announcements regarding the MTA in New York. They prefer to use and move to gender neutral phrasing like passengers, riders. But even some people are not passengers. They could just be whatever, begging, or so even passengers, they say, is not inclusive enough. It could be insulting. Riders, same thing. I swear to you. So they're thinking maybe of going everyone. But then there are some people, I'm serious, who don't believe they're human beings. Like they don't identify as being human. So even everyone, for some, is offensive. But it's less offensive. So they'd rather go to passengers, riders, or everyone. Now, the reason why this story is important, it's not just the moonbats in New York, the lunatic leftists, the left-wing loonies. This now, they want to push this into here in Boston, Washington, D.C., across the Northeast, eventually into Chicago, and of course, all down the West Coast, the left coast. So they want the term ladies and gentlemen to become almost like the equivalent of like Negro 50, 60, 70 years ago. It may have been in use, but they want it now to be completely expunged, at least from our public lexicon. When asked, a lot of people in New York say they're actually for it. They think that it's time to catch up with the times, and transgenderism is now cool and hip, and certain words are offensive, and ladies and gentlemen, according to many liberals, I swear to you, in New York, has now become offensive and discriminatory. Now, a couple of points, and then I want to ask you if you think ladies and gentlemen is offensive or discriminatory, and should we now ban its use or not use it in public? 617-266-6868 is the number. Number one, a lot of these announcements are recorded. So they're going to have to change all of the recordings to get rid of ladies and gentlemen. So it's going to cost money. So you think of all the problems that we have in society today. Just even take the metro or the subway system. In New York, it's a disaster. Sort of like here. The subways don't run on time. They're filthy. They often break down. They say they have no money for repairs. But you see, they have money to change all of the recordings. See, notice whenever they want to push a liberal left-wing cause, somehow there's always money. So, number one, the expense of this doesn't justify the supposed goal or the agenda. That's, to me, point number one. Point number two, and even more importantly, what the hell is wrong with ladies and gentlemen? In fact, in this push now for sort of quote-unquote gender-neutral phrasing, or to be as inoffensive as possible, look at how we're coarsening our culture. What's beautiful about ladies and gentlemen is that it connotates a certain class, a certain dignity, a certain beauty. Yes, from a bygone era, about how people speak to each other and refer to one another. It's polite, it's courteous, it's respectful. You're not just a woman, you're a lady. You're not just a man, you're a gentleman. Well, Jeff, I don't associate or identify with either one or the other. Well, then identify with the and. I mean, really, enough is enough. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're not the lady and you're not the gentleman. Fine, you're the and. Who cares? You're half lady, half man, half gentleman. Fine. One day you're the gentleman, one day you're the lady. Fine. Okay, worst case scenario. You don't identify as either. You think of yourself as a turtle, or you think of yourself as a giraffe. Whatever. Fine. Who cares? So they're not speaking to you right now. It doesn't matter. And what's happening is we are destroying and perverting the language. And we're removing all distinctions from the language, all beauty from the language, all dignity from the language. And what we're doing is we're dumbing down our culture, but we're also doing something to me even worse. We're vulgarizing our culture. We're leveling our culture. There's no beauty anymore. It's all simple mass conformity. So you're no longer a lady or a gentleman. You're everyone, which means really ultimately no one. You're a rider. You're a passenger. You're anonymous. There's nothing special or dignified about you. It's the war on morals, and it's the war on manners. That's what this is really all about. And let me throw one more log on the fire. We've talked obviously a lot today about Judge Roy Moore and this hysteria now, this witch hunt climate of sex abuse allegations and what's emanating from Hollywood. Notice now, you're no longer just presumed guilty until proven innocent. Notice what's changed in our culture. Now you can destroy somebody just by uttering an accusation. It's like the Salem witch hunt trials. Doesn't matter if you really were a witch, you just say somebody's a witch. Or like the Spanish Inquisition. It doesn't matter if you were a heretic, you just have to accuse somebody of being a heretic, and they're now publicly burned at the stake. But there's also something else happening which is extremely dangerous. And it is incompatible with a free society and with human freedom. There is now a push by the liberal left, the politically correct left, to now define exactly what is sexual harassment. For example, CNN did a recent town hall meeting. And in that town hall, Alison Cameretta, one of the anchors, came out and said, I was myself recently sexually harassed and a victim of a sexual predator. And everybody in the town hall, you could hear the gasps. So how was she a victim of sexual abuse? How was she a victim of being sexually harassed? Well, according to her, she said, I think it was either that day or the day before, she was walking down the hallway at CNN, and her words, a male colleague at CNN told her that she had a pretty dress. In other words, complimented her on what she was wearing. Alison Cameretta said that she felt violated. That in fact she walked over then to that colleague who was stunned and said, what you did right now is a form of sexual harassment. What you did right now struck at my very dignity as a woman. And she said, I had to educate him on how to address a woman. Because if you compliment somebody on their nice, I don't know, their nice blazer or their nice outfit, or, hey, I love your haircut, or your new hair, your hair got coiffed, or whatever it is, that this could make a woman feel uncomfortable. And if she felt uncomfortable, that was almost the equivalent of rape. And she spared him, she said. She wanted to re-educate him. She could have gone to human resources and essentially destroyed this man and his career. And then a liberal activist, a man who identifies as a feminist and a social justice warrior, that's what he said on CNN, came out and said that men, all men, need to be, and here's the key phrase, re-educated, quote unquote, on how to think about women, how to talk to women, how to look at women, how to refer to women. Now, the term re-education is a Marxist term. I mean, literally, as an historian, I'm telling you, re-education camps is what the radical left did in the Soviet Union or in China or in Cambodia. They have to send you to completely indoctrinate you and rewire, they think, the way your brain is supposed to operate. So what they want to do now is they want to appoint themselves as the thought police, as like modern day censors who go around and will determine whether they will destroy your life or not destroy your life based on a word that you said, a gesture, the way you look, the way you don't look. So, and we talked about this in the pre-planned meeting. I said, Michael, how many times have you come in with a really stylish suit or whatever, and I say, hey, wow, that's a great suit. You look phenomenal. Hey, you going to a wedding or something? You look great. How many times have I seen people in the hallway, just friendly banter, whatever, say, hey, that shirt looks great on you. Hey, where can I get those sneakers? Those are great sneakers. Now they want to call that sexual harassment. That's now a form of sexual abuse. And this is why I'm telling you, this is what's going on now. There is complete thought control being applied to language. So if say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, now that's racist. That's discriminatory. That's transphobic. I'm not kidding. Ladies and gentlemen is now transphobic. Hey, I love your outfit, Allison. That's now the equivalent of rape. So what I do now, and I've been doing this for a very long time, Brittany can testify to this, I walk down the hallway. I don't care, male, female, hi, Jeff. I don't look left. I don't look right. I just look straight ahead. Hello. And I just keep walking by. Now I don't even say hello. Now I just nod my head. Yeah. Hey, Jeff. I don't look left. I don't look right. Because if I even look, I'm serious. If I even look at a woman now the wrong way, they could say I raped her. That I looked at her, and by looking at her, I made her feel uncomfortable. It was the look in my eye, something in my eye made her feel very uncomfortable. Before you know it, that was an attempted rape. They're in HR and in the Boston Globe or the Boston Herald. Jeff Kuhner now is raping women at Entercom, or we used to be Entercom. Now it's iHeart. Jeff Kuhner is raping people at WRKO. The guy's a serial rapist. So I don't look left. I don't look right. I just look down. And then, mark my words, I swear to you, this is exactly what they said to me at the pre-show meeting. They said, and you don't see the problem you're in now. Because now that you don't talk to people, you just don't look left, I don't look right, I look down, I don't say anything. You know what they're going to complain about? I don't say hello. So why doesn't Jeff Kuhner say hello? Well, Jeff Kuhner doesn't say hello because he's a racist. Or Jeff Kuhner's a sexist. Why won't Jeff Kuhner say hello? Why won't he acknowledge me in the hallway? Is it because I'm a woman? Let me go to HR. I feel like I'm raped. Oh, is it because whatever, I'm Caribbean or Hispanic or black? Or that's because he's a KKK. You see? So if you open your mouth, you're raping. If you close your mouth, you're raping. If you open your mouth, you're being a racist. If you close your mouth, you're being a racist.
Why don't you just say, Jeff, I love your shoes in a non-sexual way?
See, even that, I mentioned the word sex. So they're going to say, no, that's non-sexual. He really meant sexual. And see, that's, so I just, no, have you noticed, Brittany?
It's a lose-lose situation.
It's lose-lose. Have you noticed, have you seen me in the hallway, right? I don't look left. I don't look right. I just keep moving.
Right.
I'm in and I'm out.
Yeah, I agree.
So let me ask you this. When I say ladies and gentlemen, as a woman, like if you know,
I'm so offended.
You're offended if I refer you as a lady?
So offended.
If, I don't know, if somebody said, hey, Brittany, great outfit today. I mean, you feel raped? Do you feel
I'm like, hey, thanks. I got it here.
That's what they're going to do to our workplace, and that's what they're going to do to our lives. In other words, every single one of you will be a potential suspect for them to run to HR and destroy you on the smallest allegations, the most ridiculous allegations. So let me ask you this double-barreled question. Ladies and gentlemen, is that term offensive and obsolete? Should we get rid of it? And number two, when you compliment somebody at the workplace, is that now a form of sexual abuse and rape? 617-266-6868. More with your calls. Next. 226 here on the great WRKO. Of course, listen, everyone's texting in saying, what happened to you? Become such a conformist, Jeff. You're afraid of your own shadow. I'm joking. I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm not like just looking down and not looking left or right. But I joke about that. I'm like walking around saying, I don't know if I should say hi. It may be sexual harassment. And everybody's laughing. But I mean, it's getting to that point. That's my larger point. We're getting to the point now that if you just look at somebody the wrong way, I feel raped and you're in HR. In other words, society has gone freaking insane. George, you're up first. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen does offend me, and I'll tell you why, Jeff. Because most people out there aren't ladies and are definitely not gentlemen, and I hate seeing them called a lady and a gentleman, and that's fact. Another thing is I think we ought to borrow a word from Obama's playbook, and they should announce over the intercom, folks, the blue line's going to be late. Folks, the red line's on time. They should just say folks.
Well, George, I love it, and thank you for that call. Well, there's also, the call of the azan, the Muslim call to prayer. Huh? So we could just, you want to talk about gender neutral. That's the ultimate. Allah, 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 Allah. That's all. We can just bless that. Huh? That's gender neutral. Everybody should love that. Skippy and Southie. Go ahead, Skippy.
I think the chief should come out with an announcement over the public viewing there is all you this, that, the other thing. Welcome to the bus. There'll be no smoking. There'll be no smiling. Don't say greetings, salutations. You'll be thrown off the bus immediately. Jeff, you could do yourself a favor. You should start wearing adult diapers, so that way you won't have to make that walk down the hall. And I think that woman that got obsessed with your nice dress, they should be the one that covers it up. They should have to wear hazmat suits, paper bags. We should have to avert our eyes. They're the ones that dress themselves up. What do you think?
Well, Skippy, I'm thinking burqa now. I mean, if hey, I like that sweater. Oh, I got to go to HR now. That's rape. Hey, where'd you get that Louis Vuitton bag? I don't know, whatever. Hey, I love those shoes. Oh, that's rape. That's hey, there's a simple, now you know why the Muslims cover them head to toe. I never understood the logic. Now I get it. Nobody can claim sexual harassment. Why? Because you can't freaking see them. Dan Stack is on. Let's go to Dan. Dan, how are you, my buddy?
Jeff, I'm doing very, very well. I just wanted to call in today and thank everybody at the WRKO radio station for helping the DAV on our radiothon. I really want to thank you personally, Jeff. Kuhner Nation really came through big time on Friday, and you can bet that we're going to be using the donations that they forwarded into us to make sure that our transportation program is even more improved next year, thanks to all of those guys. So I just wanted to touch base with you and thank you once again, and everybody in Kuhner Nation.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for all the great work you guys do at the DAV. Take care, buddy. And to everybody out there who donated, I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. We raised over $90,000 to benefit disabled American veterans. Truly an incredible cause. We issued the call, and Kuhner Country, as always, responded. Okay, my friends, coming up next, is it now official? Has America become an empire? Some huge stories, and I want to ask you, have we now officially become the modern-day Roman Empire, and is it a good thing? But first, let's take it to Evan Heidenrich. Evan, what's on store today? My friends, just to sort of wrap up everything that's going on now with transgenderism and the corruption and change in the language, it's really what one texter put it. The Taliban have the morality police. Liberals have the PC police. And what's happening now is we're trying to substitute feelings for reality. Let me repeat that. We're substituting feelings for reality. So if somebody feels like they've been raped, then they were raped. If somebody feels like it was sexual harassment, then it's sexual harassment. If somebody feels that it's racist for whatever, a term or something offends them, then we have to accept it as reality. Well, no. It's just no. Some things are factually truthful and other things are not. And that's the problem, is that now we're conflating the subjective with the objective, with feelings with reality. And that's the big trick that the left always uses. Now, speaking of objective reality, is America now an empire? In the true sense of the word, the way the Roman Empire was. Well, here is a major development, and I want to get your take on this. 617-266-6868. Right now, I want to ask you, do you think we have become an empire? It has now been officially announced that the United States has broken ground, both U.S. and Israeli officers, in Israel, in fact, in southern Israel, to create the first permanent, not temporary, permanent U.S. military base. This base will exist in southern Israel forever. It's not temporary. It's not for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. It can stay there in theory, ad infinitum. And the reason why they're doing it is they say that it's going to house dozens and dozens of U.S. soldiers operating under the American flag, and its mission will be not just to protect Israel against rocket and missile attacks, but also to enable the United States to project power. It's right near the Sinai. It's in southern Israel, right near Egypt, and right near the Jordanian border. And so they say that this permanent military base will enable the United States not just to permanently defend Israel, but also to project its power into Egypt, into North Africa, and into much of the Middle East. They are also now considering having a permanent military base in Turkey and a permanent military base in northern Iraq, what is today Kurdistan. Now, a couple of points need to be said. As you know, I am very pro-Israel. I believe that the Israelis are justified to defend their country, their land, their sovereignty, and their very survival. I think, to me, there's no question about that. Furthermore, why am I pro-Israel? I am pro-Israel because they are the last Western outpost in the Middle East, and they are surrounded in a sea of Muslim Arabs who want to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. So this is why I always defend Israel, because I understand their struggle for national survival and for the existence of the Jewish state. However, that being said, Israel does have about 100 nuclear weapons, 100 nuclear missiles. It has by far the most powerful army in the entire Middle East. Israel could nuke any planet in that region and annihilate it, wipe it off the face of the earth. So Israel has all the means necessary to defend itself. If they ever need more help, I'm always more happy for the United States to help Israel and the Jews survive, because I truly believe in their cause, and I believe that they are the victims and not the aggressors in the Middle East. But this begs a very different question. It's not about whether you support Israel or support the Jewish people, because they want to do this in Turkey and in Kurdistan in northern Iraq. By the way, I'm also very pro-Kurdish. I'm not pro-Turkish. I want Turkey to be kicked out of NATO, but let that go. What they want to do is establish military bases, permanent military bases, across the Middle East. This is exactly what the Romans used to do. The Romans would set up garrisons, military camps, in perpetuity across the Middle East. And in fact, setting up permanent bases in other countries is almost the definition of an empire. Yes, we have troops in Germany. I understand that. We have troops in Japan and military bases. Yes. And in South Korea. Yes. But in theory, those are all temporary. They've been there for a long time. Germany, it's been since the end of World War II. Japan, since the end of World War II. South Korea, since the end of the Korean War. I think, you know my position on this. I am an America First nationalist. I believe it is time to put America first. The Germans are now wealthy and powerful enough to defend Germany. I think our troops should come out of Europe. Japan is more than able to defend, the Japanese are more than able to defend Japanese territory and Japanese sovereignty. They're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We don't need to have our base on Okinawa anymore. Same thing with South Korea. You look at Trump's recent trip to Asia, and I'm watching him meet the leader of China, the dictator, Xi Jinping, and I want you to think about this. We have 29,000 troops along the demilitarized zone, U.S. troops. We have military bases all across South Korea. We are borrowing money. We're running a $20 trillion national debt. We are borrowing money from South Korea and from Japan, from Asia, to defend Asia. When South Korea has twice the population of North Korea, its economy is 40 times bigger and stronger. South Korea could easily annihilate North Korea in any war. They may take heavy casualties, yes, but they could easily defeat North Korea. And so there is our president, because we are committed to keep defending South Korea, as if the South Korean war ended yesterday and not 70 years ago. And South Korea, we're acting as if it's not an Asian tiger and one of the most prosperous economies in the world. So there is our president looking for leverage from China to try to rein in North Korea. And one of the chips he has to give up? That China will no longer take advantage of our U.S. market. So he is willing to allow China to continue to exploit us, to continue to allow some form of free trade, to continue not to have tariffs imposed upon Chinese goods, because he desperately needs the help of China and Beijing to rein in North Korea. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, whoa, 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 whoa. If we weren't committed to South Korea's defense, in other words, if we weren't behaving like an empire that has to defend South Korea from North Korea, but would tell the South Koreans, listen, you're wealthy enough, you're strong enough, you're rich enough, you're powerful enough to defeat Pyongyang and defeat North Korea. In fact, if they go nuclear, we'll load you up with nuclear weapons. We'll give you the nuclear deterrent. So we will sell you all the weapons that you need to defend yourselves forever. But because we are so inextricably involved in the internal affairs of defending South Korea, we are not defending our own people here at home. Because we're allowing the Chinese to play us for fools as if they're going to help us with North Korea, and this way we're not protecting our massive economy, which is being exploited and taken advantage of by the Chinese. Because we need the Chinese, allegedly, to rein in the North Koreans. And who gets hurt by this? You do. China is our number one geopolitical foe. It's not even close. They have been economically raping us for the last 25 years. Millions of jobs outsourced to China. Our manufacturing outsourced to China. Our country deindustrialized to China. Our factories sent off to China. And yet, because we're still playing the role of empire, i.e. protecting all of these protectorates around the world, we are leaving our own country economically vulnerable and even physically, militarily vulnerable. We have, like the Roman Empire, a massive porous border where barbarians, they're just called illegal immigrants, then they were called the Germanic tribes, are just pouring in. And yet we are so busy involved in overseas foreign entanglements that we're allowing our own country to be essentially destroyed and subverted and bankrupted from within. We're $20 trillion in debt. We can't afford to play global cop. Our factories are gone. Middle America is bleeding. Let South Korea defend South Korea. Let Japan defend Japan. Let Israel defend Israel. Let Kurdistan, or let the Kurds defend Kurdistan. Let Turkey defend Turkey. If they need help, I'm more than happy to help them. But in the end, we should not be having military bases for 60, 70 years, as we do in Asia and in Europe. And we certainly shouldn't have permanent military bases, i.e. forever, whether it be in Israel or Turkey or Kurdistan. The only place that should have permanent military bases is right here in the United States. And if we don't wise up, if we don't realize what our socialist elites have done to us, what our globalists have done to us, is they have changed us from a republic into an empire. And this is the basis of their wealth, the basis of their power, and the basis of their money. You know, the reason why they want a global economic system is because they want a global political order. They essentially want one world government. And the only way to have one world government is to have a one world military. The key to having a one world military is to have a great power like the United States act as the agent of a one world government. Every empire eventually goes into the dustbin of history. It is unsustainable. We now have security commitments to over 100 countries in the world. From the Baltics to Eastern Europe to the Balkans to Japan to South Korea to Israel to Turkey to Iraq to Afghanistan to now parts even of Northern Africa. There is not one continent in the world that the United States does not have troops or military bases. My friends, we're going to exhaust ourselves. We're overstretched. And notice, it's always in their interests. If I'm a South Korean, of course I want the Yanks to fight my wars for me. If I'm Japanese, I never want the Americans to leave. If I'm the Israelis, of course I want America protecting me forever. If I'm the Europeans, of course I want the American eagle to be there and protect them from now until eternity. But who pays for it? You do. Who does the fighting and the bleeding and the dying? You do. And there's something else. Do you honestly think if we're going to be in Israel forever, and I'm just using Israel as an example, yes, Trump is very pro-Israel. It's true. But what about his successor? We saw what Obama did, how he tried to meddle in Israel's election to prevent Netanyahu from winning. He who pays the piper calls the tune. When we start establishing permanent military bases, when we start underwriting the security of other nations, you know what's going to happen? They're going to become protectorates and de facto colonies of America. The American ambassador in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem will have as much power as the prime minister. And the next time, we're going to say to the Israelis, whoa, 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 we've got bases. We're protecting you guys. We want you to cut a deal with the Palestinians. Or we want you to sign on the dotted line. And we will start meddling in the internal affairs of other nations. It's bad for Israel. It's bad for Japan. It's bad for South Korea. It's bad for Europe. It's bad for everybody. A republic, not an empire. That's what George Washington bequeathed us, and that's what we must restore again. Agree, disagree. Has America now become an empire? And should we have permanent military bases in countries such as Israel, Turkey, and let's say northern Iraq? 617-266-6868. Your calls next. Remember Star Wars? You know, Darth Vader and the dark side? They were always trying to set up permanent military bases. In fact, I don't know if it was episode 4 or whatever, like the one that first came out in the late 1970s, the Battlestar ship or whatever it was. That's the one that Luke Skywalker blew up at the end. Like that's what we're starting to build in countries all over the world. I thought we were supposed to be the good guys. And instead now we're creating permanent military bases, a la Darth Vader, a la the dark side, all over the world. Should we have permanent military bases in other countries? We have now set up one in Israel. They're planning to do another one in Turkey, another one in northern Iraq to keep projecting power across the Middle East and North Africa. I say that is the way of the Roman Empire, bankruptcy and ruin. What do you say? Lines are loaded. Anthony in Marlborough. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hey, Jeff, 2,000 years ago, people was...
Anthony, call back. Your the connection is horrible. John in Revere. Go ahead, John.
Hello, Kuhner?
John, how are you?
Good. A long-time listener, first-time calling.
Welcome.
And I agree with you totally. We're becoming the modern Romans. What the Romans did, all the slaves, they put them to work in the fields, and the local people didn't have any jobs, and we're doing the same thing in this country. I don't have an answer, but I feel what you said is absolutely right. We have to take care of ourselves first and let everybody else go by the wayside.
John, amen. The old expression is tend to your own garden. Don't mind other people's business, mind your own. And I want you to just think about the parallels to the Roman Empire. By the way, this is nothing new. This I'm telling you straight from our founding fathers. This is what our founding fathers warned, saying this will be the death of America if we do as follows. Well, the Roman Empire had slaves, and they also had invaders. Their borders were completely porous. Well, what essentially are illegal immigrants? Cheap labor we bring in, essentially modern-day slaves, massive porous borders, an invasion that we don't have the will or ability to stop, a crushing bureaucracy which eventually suffocated the economy of Rome, same thing that's going on here. Massive overtaxation. It destroyed Rome. It's doing the same thing here. A growing mercenary army. Look at how now we don't have a citizen army like we used to have. It's basically now come in, get paid, and, you get your benefits after 5, 10, 15 years. Constantly meddling in other people's affairs. Setting up huge permanent military bases. Eventual loss of patriotism. And a growing opposition to this empire around the world. And the slow death of Republican institutions. Look at Congress. Look at the presidency. Look at how power keeps amassing, like in the Roman Empire, to the center. To today, Washington is the modern-day Rome, away from the people, local government, then they called them provinces, today states. We are repeating the very same mistakes that brought down the Roman Empire because of our power, our wealth, and our success. And we forgot George Washington's famous words when he told us, stay home. Do not create permanent alliances and meddle in the affairs of other countries. Or like John Quincy Adams famously said, do not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. Those that champion liberty, you will have the sympathy of America. But the struggle must be yours, not ours. Aaron in New Hampshire. Go ahead, Aaron.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call, brother.
Go ahead, Aaron. I've got about a minute. The floor is yours.
All right, 2 quick points. One, we shouldn't have military bases in those far-off lands because it doesn't protect our perimeter. I told you before, my dad worked for BAE Systems for almost 40 years. There are missile defense mechanisms, there are grid systems that can set up that can keep our borders and our perimeters safe for decades to come. They just choose not to do it. It's almost counterproductive to have military bases anywhere. And my second point is, the big argument for people who want military bases in Germany and Japan and everywhere else is that, well, we need to get our troops to a certain area, so we need them there. We need to get our planes to a certain area, so we need them there. If those countries are our allies anyway, they'll let us use their military bases. They'll work with us. So it really doesn't serve any purpose to have our own military bases there when we can just share them with theirs.
Bingo. You nailed it. If we ever needed to fight a war in the Middle East, let's just say, then obviously Israel would allow us to use their bases, or in theory, Turkey or northern Iraq. This is a play by the globalists for more power and more control. And as they say, pride cometh before the fall. America, come home. It's time to put America first.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 3 o'clock.